Hello, amazing souls. Welcome to the Soul Vibe Insights Podcast, a show to demystify the soul, intuition, and the Akashic Records. We know a thing or two about the ups and downs of being on a spiritual growth plan and how to find the higher perspective, even when it seems like there isn't one. I'm your host, Maddie Hollingsworth.
And I'm your host, Emily Pearl. We've been professional intuitives and energy healers for over 20 years now. We believe each of us are on a unique path of growth and learning, and our intuition is meant to be our guide. The problem is, most of us have never learned how to use it. That's where we come in, helping you discover how your intuition works and the lessons your soul has chosen to learn in this life is what we're all about.
All right, y'all, let's jump right into today's show. Hey there, amazing souls, and welcome to today's show. Emily and I are excited to be back with you. We are going to be talking a lot about things that defy logic that have happened in our lives.
I feel like we need like a sound effect. Mind blowing.
Yes, some of them will be rather mind-blowing. They absolutely defy logic. And the main thing that I really want to hit on before we get into this stuff is that you got to be open to the possibilities of life. If you believe that magic can happen, magic can happen. We aren't bound by the things that we're taught that the three-dimensional physical world only works and operates in a certain way. Once we shift the energy within ourselves or around us, it can affect the physical realm. They are very much connected here.
Indeed. I mean, I think a big example of that is going on in the world right now. We're shifting out of one energetic like template as the planet and into a new one, and like all of this chaos and craziness has been stirring up and happening. And so I think that is part of the reason why.
Yeah, it helps the, planetary wide to move energy and to shift things so something new can take its place. Yeah, chaotic energy usually is the front runner of change.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, I wish it didn't happen that way, but you don't even realize change needs to happen unless chaos ensues, or at least some sort of reason for the change.
But we were talking about this just these last couple of days, that no one self-evaluates and goes, everything in my life is perfect. I need to make changes.
Yeah.
There's usually underlying things that we're not dealing with, and we're thinking mass consciousness on a planet scale. And there is a bit of chaotic energy that comes forth before change happens.
Yeah. Yeah, whether that's chaotic energy within yourself and you're like, I just can't keep going on this way. This has to change. Or, you get fed up with your job or a relationship and you're like, I just can't do this anymore. So there's some sort of chaos that comes up inside of you before change is imminent.
Absolutely. It's the harbinger that change is coming in your life, for sure. So if you're resonating with something like that, just know that open your mind to the possibilities. Be open to change coming in your life, and it doesn't have to come through chaos. You can affect things with your energy. The stories, the examples that we're going to share come from mine and Emily's ability to work with energy as Reiki healers, our Akashic Records work, past life regressions, just our energies coming together, our souls traveling and seeing each other. So we're going to share some fun things with you. Keep your mind open to the possibilities.
Shall we get started?
Yes.
We've got a pretty long list that we just kept going adding on to. So
yes, we did.
We're going to try to move through them.
So no life update other than to say we're good, we're happy, we're excited to be here with you. There's your life update.
Colorado.
Wanted to share a fun quote with you from a show that we've watched before. It's probably the greatest animation thing that you could ever have your kids watch, but it works so well for adults as well. But Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's permanently on Netflix all the time.
Well, hopefully. We'll see.
Yes, hopefully that it will never go away.
It was a Nickelodeon show first.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It was Nickelodeon first. Netflix has been involved with the later stuff. But Bumi, in there, a good friend of Avatar Aang, tells him, instead of seeing what they want you to see, you got to open your brains to the possibilities. We've just always gravitated to that and loved the simplicity of that. Being open to what's out there and how things can shift and how you can affect it in your world. All right, do you want to jump in with the first one?
Sure. So this first story comes from before Maddie and I were a couple. We've talked about our history before on the podcast, so we were friends for a long time before we became a couple. So this was back when we were friends and we were working together, and I was at work and I kept complaining about this weird sensation that I had in my toe. Like, it literally felt like a worm was crawling around in my toe, like wiggling around. It was driving me crazy. And so Maddie decided that he would come to my house before, I don't think I worked that day, but I think he did. I can't remember. But anyway, so he came to my house before work and he was going to do a Reiki session with me. And so I'm laying on the table, you know, and under a blanket, because when you do Reiki sessions, you're fully clothed, and so the energy just kind of flows through you, through the hands of the practitioner, and, you know, to you. And he always starts off like holding my head, and then, you know, worked his way down to my toe. And it was like, once he got to my toe, it was like the same sensation like crept up within me. And then, like, literally within just a couple minutes, it was like we both felt, and I really can only describe it like a worm, but we like literally both felt him energetically pull this worm out of my toe. And then I never had that wiggling, annoying sensation again. I mean, it drove me crazy for weeks. And then within a very short session, like an hour or less,
they were always 45 minutes to an hour long.
Yeah. And it was just gone.
And it was
amazing.
It was like when you're about to open a bottle of wine and the cork pops, but right before that, you've got that pressure that's building and you're kind of right there and you just pop it out. And that was it. It was just like latching on, that building, that anticipatory, this is about to happen. And then that was it. I was so grounded that day. I would be grounded doing a Reiki session, but that day in particular, I could really feel my root grounded in. You know, the energy was big time flowing, more than normal. I knew shifts were coming. I didn't realize we were going to pull a worm out of your toe, but I knew something was going to happen that day.
Yes.
And was just open to what it was going to be.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I was so grateful because it never bothered me again. And I've never had that sensation since. So yay.
Maddie and Emily 1, worm 0.
For sure.
All right, so the next thing, we're going to jump right in. I had hurt my shoulder. I ended up tearing my labrum about 90% through. I didn't have health insurance, so this was something I wasn't going to a doctor about. I just knew I'd hurt myself. I didn't know exactly what had happened. And it was about 3 years in. My family member works in radiology and has their entire life. And I was able to go visit, and they kind of worked it out with the attending doctor and stuff and slipped me in, let me get a couple x-rays and a MRI on my shoulder. Found out labrum's torn. From the x-rays, I've got a bone chip floating around in there. And, you know, when he read the films, he told my family member that was probably the most painful thing. And if the injury was really that long ago, it must have been big, because the body normally will kind of take care of a bone chip within about a year or so to reabsorb it and make use of the calcium and stuff, and it'll be gone. You know, these things aren't just left floating around in the body forever when they happen. So I didn't know about this. I just knew I was in pain, and at different times I was in a lot more pain than other times with my shoulder. I continued to work in the restaurants, and, you know, so a lot of carrying and things and repetitive motions were done. So there were definitely days that I hurt more than others. But now I had verifiable proof on film something was up. Well, now I could focus my energy work on something instead of just focusing on relieving my shoulder's pain and trying to strengthen it. Now it was like, well, there's a bone chip in there. That's one of the most painful things. Let's focus on that. I had pretty much made the decision that I was done dealing with it, so I was going to be figuring out how to have surgery. A few months later, I met a doctor and, you know, started on the path of getting surgery. But the thing is, we got films again. He wanted to take fresh films. 3 months after I started to do energy work on dissolving a bone chip. Now I had an x-ray without a bone chip in it. So within those few months of just taking my focus with the Reiki work to doing that, I was able to dissolve a bone chip. Wow. Which was pretty cool. And my pain was a lot less leading up to the surgery. But at that point, I knew I'm done dealing. Like, I don't want to go on. I remember the doctor even told me, he said, well, there's two things you can do. I was like, well, great. There's choices then. He goes, one, you can deal with it. I was like, oh, I've been dealing with it. I don't want that. He goes, well, we can repair it with surgery. I was like, yeah, I'm leaning towards the latter choice right there. So that's another thing that can happen with energy work and focus and being open to the possibilities of timelines that don't have to be what a doctor tells you. Different shifts can take place. Magic can happen.
So this third story is, just kind of something fun that happened. This was a long time ago, not long after Maddie and I met, and we were working together at this restaurant in downtown Asheville. And I also worked with my roommate. And so we got her to come with us this day, even though she thought we were crazy. But anyway, so this guy who was friends with my other roommate, he let me borrow his car while he was away on, he worked like a week out in the field. He did like wilderness therapy. So he worked a week on and was out in the field, which is out in the woods. And so during this week, he allowed me to drive his car. Well, I drove his car to the grocery store and the battery died. So the car was stuck at the grocery store and I could not get it back to our house, which wasn't too far away, but I didn't want to have to call a tow truck or anything. So I got Maddie and I got my roommate to come with me to this car stuck in the grocery store, and we were going to go try to get it started to try to drive it back to the house. Well, once again, it wouldn't start. And we tried it a couple more times and it wouldn't start. So Maddie and I decided that we would try to do Reiki with this car. And so we got my roommate too. So all three of us put our hands on the front of the car. And of course, she thought we were crazy.
I remember rolling her eyes about it.
We're like, no, come on, just do it. Put your hands on the car. And so we're putting our hands on the car and we're focusing all of our energy into this car. Trying to get it to start, focusing this Reiki energy to it. Sure enough, I get back in the car and it starts right up. And then I drive it back to the house. It was awesome.
Yeah. Very, very awesome to affect a freaking car with energy work. It made sense to me that energy worked with our animal friends and human friends, with our, bioelectric bodies that we have, and we put off this energy. But a car?
But everything's energy.
Exactly. That was one of my first openings to the possibilities, that everything's made of the same matter, just rearranged different, and we perceive it as different, but it's all energy. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So that was kind of a fun story. And this next story is actually a story that happened to just me. And this was quite a while before Maddie and I became a couple. So the stories that we've talked about so far before pre-coupledom, and then we'll get into the post-coupledom stories here in just a moment. But this was a time I was visiting Virginia Beach with one of my ex and our roommate at the time. We were there for a funeral. It was my ex's aunt. And so it was nighttime after the funeral. We decided to go to the Edgar Cayce Visitor Center. They had this really cool garden out back with this water feature. So we decided to go to this garden at night, and we were just gonna, we weren't really supposed to be there. We didn't really have to sneak in because there weren't really fences or anything to keep you out, but we weren't exactly supposed to be there either. So we snuck into the garden, and I'm holding quotes because we didn't really have to sneak that hard. And we're sitting by the water feature, just kind of paying, tribute to his aunt. And our roommate, he kind of walked away. So he and I were just sitting there kind of talking and stuff. And then all of a sudden we look up, and in the moonlight, there was a white wolf standing right in front of us. Now, to this day, I have zero clue if this white wolf was actually a white wolf or it was a ghost wolf. I really, to this day, have no idea, but we both, like, grabbed each other because we didn't know what to do. We were just stunned, like, in complete shock and silence. And we sat there and watched this wolf just stare at us for a few moments, and then it was gone. And it was just really crazy.
Well, and to both have the same vision, it isn't exactly like both of you clairvoyantly hit on the same thing. It doesn't really come up that way. So whether you saw a ghost wolf or a real physical 3D wolf,
I feel like either way, it was crazy.
It's crazy.
It was a white wolf. I mean, either way, seeing a white wolf, like, in nature is kind of crazy, but especially, like, at Virginia Beach. Like, we were literally, like, the Edgar Cayce Foundation is really close to the beach. It's not on the beach, but it is pretty close to the water. So just seeing a white wolf there, no matter what, is just kind of a crazy thing.
Yeah.
But, so, that happened.
Again,
that was crazy.
Just being open to the possibilities of what life brings.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the post-coupledom. And I feel like if you do not want to hear very intimate relationship stories, then this may be a good time for you to stop listening. But if you can keep your mind open and you are willing to hear intimate details about our relationship, then...
I think they are. I trust that our audience is mature enough to handle the few stories that get pretty intimate. I'll kick off the first one.
Yeah.
Emily was out of a relationship she'd been in for a while. I had been single for a while, but unbeknownst to us, our souls were coming together. There was already work happening in the astrals that was bringing us together. I had no conscious knowing that this is what was happening for us for sure. But Emily was at a concert in Charlotte. I was in Asheville, and you were seeing Fish. Mm-hmm. And I remember that I just left my body on the couch and ended up at the Fish show above you. Just astral traveled to Charlotte, hanging out.
And you'd never astral traveled before this point either.
Not in a way that I knew that I could be like, hey, I just astral traveled. I'm sure I've had some out-of-body experiences, but this was a defining moment for me, realizing that, holy shit, this is possible. We can send our astral body and consciousness other places. The really cool part of this is I text Emily. So we start communicating while she's at the show, and I'm telling her, hey, I was above you. You're wearing this and this, and I saw y'all kind of right here about this place in the show. If I remember, it was kind of left of Soundboardish, somewhere around that area. I'm pretty sure the song was Wilson, but I was able to describe to you in text message the music
exactly
playing,
where I was,
where
the
you
music
were.
I was playing, what I was wearing. It was crazy.
Yeah, and when I was there, your astral body came up with me, and we were dancing together up above, and that was wild and beautiful. That was just a wild time, and to have details validated. Not just validating my own experience. I went and did this and had this vision and saw this stuff. Kind of like when you saw the white wolf with your ex. You had somebody else there with you that shared in that experience. I think that makes things even more powerful when we have these shared experiences together and we can support each other and validate each other through that. So that was wild to be able to communicate with you and share those details and have you be like, holy shit, yeah. They just played that song. I am wearing these clothes. What? Huh? We got to talk more about that. Yeah, and soon after we were a couple.
Yeah.
Beginning our story of love together.
I'm like, you're looking at me for timeline information. You know that that's not my strength. I'm like, woo! It all happened.
Is there anything else you want to say around that?
I mean, before that point, I had astral traveled to your house. And we shared a very intimate experience together, which I did not realize that you knew about, or at least like it was in my imagination or in my fantasy, I suppose you could say. And then I remember we were talking about it and you just brought it up.
I was so nervous to bring this up. And I mean, 999 out of 1,000 times, I never would have brought this up, but it was like my life depended on bringing this up and finding out if that was the truth, because if it happened and you knew about it, that would just be wild. And the worst could just be, well, I guess that was my desire for something like that to happen. We'll just laugh that off and let it go. But I had to ask you if you came to my house energetically and threw my door open and put it on me.
And that was another weird thing because he described basically frame by frame exactly what I was seeing in my visions as well. So we had a very intimate moment in the astrals that, I mean, I didn't know that I was capable of that, and I've never really had any other experiences like that. So it's just kind of crazy that that even happened the way it did.
Super wild. I'd never had those kind of experiences before.
I mean, have you since?
No. I've been
it
able
was
to
really just like in this coming together of our relationship that these things have happened, and then they have never really happened in that way again. But I mean, I guess we have been together for most of that time, so
yeah, and
we need to travel to each other.
I can take my consciousness and join up with other things, but I'm still consciously aware of myself. Like in these instances, it was like all I was aware of was that astral travel or what was happening. It was kind of like being out of body and not really rooted in myself with these experiences. I'm feeling all giddy, bringing them up and talking about them.
About it. And this next thing is how we basically our proposal, like wedding proposal. It's essentially
Yes.
We were hanging out in bed one evening, I guess, or afternoon. I don't remember what it was, probably afternoon. And we were hanging out in bed, enjoying each other's company. And I just remember I was laying on Maddie's chest, and we both had this shared vision of our wedding. And I just remember we looked up at each other and looked into each other's eyes. And from that moment, we knew that we were going to be married.
Yep. That was...
It was just like we knew.
Lovely. It was a deep knowing. You said yes, I said yes. Neither one of us asked. I think our souls were just like, yep. All right, check.
This is going to happen. And
Yeah. So we have a very non-proposal proposal that we gave each other energetically. And we knew. And it's been amazing.
yeah, it's been 13 years. Well, 10 years married.
Yeah. Yay.
13 years together.
Oh, God, your eyes sparkled so much that day. That takes me back. It was definitely the afternoon after we'd been enjoying each other's company. Yeah.
All right, so this next one happened. Well, actually, all of these next ones happened after we were already married. And so this first one, I was working at a salon. I was practicing massage at this salon. Not well, but I was practicing massage there. And this woman, I had this client, and she was a beautiful person and a beautiful client. And afterwards, we're sitting there just talking, and she sat on the table. Like most people just left right away, but she didn't. She stayed. And she asked me, hey, do you have a minute to talk? There's something I really need to tell you. I was like very curious and confused about what in the world this woman that I had just met had to tell me. But she told me that she was sent to me by someone who needed to send me a message. And the reason she found me is she came to the salon like weeks prior and got a haircut. And so once she saw me, she was like asked to give me this message. And so she made an appointment to get a massage with me. So this is how I was seeing this woman anyway. And she basically told me, like, after the massage, and then we ended up seeing each other again a couple days later. But anyway, she told me that the message is that my soul was in very deep pain, and that if I continue the path that I'm on, then it won't end well for me. Basically, she could tell that my soul was deeply hurting and grieving and in deep pain, and that just if I continue this path, that I may not live very long. Or, I mean, she just said it wouldn't end well for me, so whatever that means, it means. But basically, I needed to make major change. What's really interesting about this is that, yes, I had this like great experience with her, and it was this healing experience because I ended up seeing her again later, and we had like an even longer session, and she helped connect a lot of dots for me and helped me see that I was on a very, very awful path of victimhood, and I was obviously very unhappy in my life at the time. I mean, at this time, I was like so dreading the future. I was like so unhappy. But anyway, the interesting part of all of this is that when I finally started learning about the Akashic Records, my Akashic Record guide, she told me in a session that she was the one that sent this woman, Denise, to come find me. And so it was just kind of this crazy realization. And I mean, it kind of helped validate for me that, okay, I may not know what role the Akashic Records has in my life, but this is an important event for me. This is something huge that I need to learn.
Yeah, we weren't working in the records yet at this point, but
no,
yet,
I mean, that didn't come till years later.
Because there is no past, present, future in spirit where the records exist, Emily's Akashic Record Spirit Guide was working through our linear time to send messages to make sure that it got to Emily so she would make some necessary changes that would lead to working in the Akashic Records and training to be able to do this. Yeah, I just find that super cool that this was all working on behind the scenes, and for you to find out later and to kind of validate that experience of how important this was going to be for you to be taking your spiritual growth within the Akashic Records.
And so, speaking of Akashic Records.
Yeah, we've brought this up before, but one of the coolest things we've researched and found out and knew about ahead of time, like almost 6 months prior, were the 3 key factors to be looking for the person that was going to buy our house. And this was before we even started renovating our house. We checked in the records and went on a big list of renovations and what was the most important to focus on and all that. But we knew going in that would be a cash buyer, that this person was going to work close by to where the house was, and was going to make a mention, somehow get it to us that they could feel all the love that we put in, and that the property had been loved, that they could feel that about this.
Yeah, something about love.
And when it came time to sell the house, and we were turning down a couple of really great offers because they weren't matching this criteria, and then all of a sudden this came in, cash offer. The gentleman wrote a letter to us with the offer, and in that letter stated was going to be working at the place that we knew, and could feel when they were walking through the house and property how much love we'd put in, how much we cared for it, and we're looking forward to taking over that stewardship.
Yeah, the letter was so beautiful, and he was the only one that even wrote a letter to us, so it was just kind of crazy that it came through like that. Of course, we didn't get to meet him, but I feel like we'd really like him if we did.
Oh, I'm sure we would, but this is post-COVID. When we bought the house, we got to meet the people. We were in the same place signing and everything, but none of that was allowed at this time frame.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we would definitely have grooved with each other for sure.
Yeah.
But we just wanted to reiterate that sometimes things ahead of time, and you got to trust and stick with it.
Yeah, the weird thing about that is when we channeled that information from the records, I burst into tears because of how strong I knew it to be true. We were just talking about this earlier today. There's just certain times where it's like, I know something is true. I don't have any logic or reason for knowing why it's true. It's just, yep, that's definitely true. And this was one of those times. And it really was going out on a limb for me to even trust that much, especially over a period of months. Because this happened months before We even put the house on the market and sold the house. We held this vision, and we knew that it was true when it happened. And then we held that belief and that knowing the entire time. And sure enough, I mean, we had no idea how it was going to come through, but sure enough, all three of those key points were hit upon, like in our house sale. So it was just freaking crazy.
Yeah, there was a proposed development going in on the 110 acres that we lived really near in the woods there. So we didn't, we were open to the possibilities. We thought maybe the developer was going to make us an offer or something. We didn't know if we were actually going to go all the way through and renovate the house and put it on the market traditionally, have people come in and look and accept bids. Like we had no idea that it was going to work out that way.
Though.
We were definitely conflicted on that possibility.
We didn't want to sell it to developers. We wanted to sell it to a person. But we just knew that the house was going on the market. We knew very much that this is what we wanted. Even though we loved a great portion, we loved that place, but we had lived in that neighborhood. Well, Maddie had lived in that neighborhood for like 20 years then, and I'd lived there for like 11 or 12.
17, yeah.
Oh,
17 of the 19 and a half years
like
I was in
11
Asheville.
or 12 for me, and it was like each new day, because there was this beautiful park, and I mean, I still like, have visions, and I loved walking in that park.
Richmond Hill, oh yeah.
But it was like each day that we walked in the park, it started to become like we were walking through these echoes of like all this trauma that we'd been in, and we just kept repeating that day after day. And so it just kind of became clear to us that it was time to sell, that it was time to see who we were outside of that neighborhood, outside of that place, outside of those echoes. I mean, even though there's like beautiful echoes too, but there was a lot of trauma and healing and things that happened there as well. So
yeah, I mean, what a safe space that neighborhood was, and one of the things my soul came to break a cycle for and to deal with, and I got to have that neighborhood and that safety and that feeling of belonging and place in that hood as my backdrop for healing in my life. But it did, like Emily said, it became this walking through the echoes of past traumas that are there, kind of like
each time we like drove home and went back. I mean, there was like so many,
all being flooded again with memories and stuff.
Yeah.
A few visits when we've gone through Asheville to drive through. No idea what it's like now.
Yeah, after the floods. You said flooded.
Yeah.
Okay, so
well,
we're digressing.
Let's get back to magic.
Yeah, we wanted to keep this light.
We did have another experience with a car.
Mm-hmm. This happened not too long ago when we were driving from Canada to Fort Collins. So yeah, beginning of August.
We were driving to, was it Des Moines we spent the night in?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were on our way there. We stopped at a rest stop, stretch our legs, do the thing you do, and hop back in the car and take off down the road. And when we turned the car back on, we had a major check engine light, all-wheel drive. It sounded weird. We were both like, holy shit, what's going on? So we turned the car off, paused for a moment, did some quick research on that light. Everything we found was do not drive, call immediately, get this serviced. This is a major mechanical issue. But our intuition was telling both of us that we needed to just call in divine help and do energy work on our car and to drive it, and it would be okay. Talk about defying logic when our Google research is bringing up, do not drive.
I mean, I was driving most of the time, and I was so freaking nervous. But it is interesting because both of us decided we were going to take matters into our own hand and do energy work with the car, unbeknownst to each other.
We didn't discuss the fact that we were going to do energy work. Our intuition was telling us it's okay to drive. So we did, but each one of us, when we talked later about what we had done, we basically called in divine help, used our Reiki, ran through all of the electrical wires and systems, laid down some transmutation energy to take care of anything that was, let's just say, that needed to be transmuted and changed and rearranged. And we just allow divinity to take care of that for us. Your energy work is always stronger when you use your own mind as well. When you make room for the possibility that anything can happen and the universe will step in and do as it needs to with energy. But when you're also directing your mind and putting your mental energy, you're focusing on, hey, we're looking to clear the wires, trace everything, go into all the electrical systems, check this out. This is what I'm looking for. Make sure that, if there's anything off, we repair, we rearrange, we make right again, brand new again.
Yeah, it's about maintaining focus.
Yeah.
Like directing that focused energy in the same direction that you want the outcome to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did this individually and then talked about it later. Like, oh, well, I've been doing this. I've been just like, wow, in the car, like high vibe energy. And Emily's telling me, well, I've been doing this and this too while I've been driving. So it was pretty cool that we both just jumped on that and did our energetic electrical repairs. We get to the hotel that night. It's late. It's like midnight or 12:30 in the morning. We check in. Emily drives the car around to the side so we can unload easy near our room, and check engine light goes off.
Yeah.
Everything was fine. It drove just fine.
And
Actually, Benzie's been driving better than ever.
yeah, and it's been to the shop since then. It's gotten some love. She's gotten some new shoes. She's gotten her engine looked at, and so everything is all good to go.
On the up and up.
We've even got the confirmation.
Yeah.
As well. Woo!
So there's something about our belief in the possibilities of working with cars, y'all. It's pretty freaking cool. I hope this streak continues for us.
Yes, forever.
One I wanted to bring up was healing, balancing the energy on a tremendous fear of heights I've had forever. And I could never point to anything that created this fear of heights within me. But I've just pretty much been terrified my whole life of anything up high, especially if you're up a couple stories and the wind blows around. Like, oh my gosh, I just feel like I was about to be a paper bag just thrown up in the air and tossed around, or a little plastic bag, just
Oh yeah,
no control at all. Remember Aruba for the honeymoon?
So
8 stories up.
This is another one, by the way. Maddie just kind of read into this, but this is the next point that we wanted to make.
Oh yeah, okay. we switch gears into the next point.
Yes, but yes, when we were in Aruba on our honeymoon, we were like on the 22nd floor or something, and it's so windy there, like 30 miles an hour wind all the time, and yeah.
I would white knuckle the railing. Remember, I would sit on the floor, so I wasn't standing. I was white knuckle the railing and stuff.
We both sat on the floor.
I was like terrified that I was about to be somehow all 155-ish pounds of me would just be picked up and thrown around and just tossed like nothing. I mean, I know these things can happen, but like just illogical fear of heights. If I was driving a car on a bridge, and you know how you can't see ahead of you because of the way the horizon goes, and there's just bridge, and like you can't see anything, and it looks like you could just be floating off into anywhere and just the car's going to fall off. Terrified. I mean, just terrified of fear my entire life with nothing, no logical thing to point to be like, oh, this happened when I was a kid. And, that makes sense. So I can counterbalance this. But through past life regression and a spirit guide meeting, I found out that I had died on the way to D-Day in World War II. I was a paratrooper. And the plane had taken on fire, and we were told to jump when we weren't really at the right speed and altitude for that. I jumped. I didn't make it, but I remember in the past life, we won't get into the details of this, but just that it felt like I was just being tossed around and thrown, like my parachute didn't come open right and stuff. And so that feeling of just having no control within my own body and the wind was just going to do what it wanted with me, it came from there. And I remember, dealing with the fact that I died. It's like, well, now I have this awareness, like, okay, well, that's where it stems from, this past life, how it happened. And I remember the question I had for my spirit guide was, why? Why did this have to happen? I mean, this was tragic. I know we're talking about a war and a lot of awful, tragic things happened or happen in wars, but why did this have to happen to me? And the answer was so blunt. This was less tragic than fighting in the war would have been. And I was just like, it just hit me in that high heart, like a pebble dropping into a pond and rippling out, that body, mind, soul experience. And I knew the truth in that, knowing how I am, knowing my soul, going through a war, that would have been more tragic for me to have actually had to, the things I would have had to do to try to survive. That if I needed to pass and go through something, that this was much better. And when there are big events and wars, there are souls that sign up knowing that they're not going to survive. This is part of their learning or growth, is to be a soul willing to move on, to pass. So I was one of those souls that was willing to move on early in this, America's D-Day invasion and jumping in. Well, once I made these connections, within a couple of days, I had no more fear of heights. We drove over, I remember driving over a bridge, nothing came up for me. And I remember thinking, whoa, I would normally be scared. I'd be terrified of this. We have since then climbed everything, scrambled any rock we can get near, windy as all get out, and I'm fine. I'm like standing up near ledges now, wind's blowing. I just kind of lean back into the wind, and it's like I'm much more in my body. I understand that I have more control. Yes, wind is powerful. Heights can be a scary thing, and things can happen, but if I'm smart about it, I can now enjoy being in heights. We've climbed Cathedral Rock and Bell Rock and Sedona, been near the rim, the edges of places in the Grand Canyon and stuff, and it's just all cool to me now. I don't have this overwhelming, terrifying fear. So it's amazing what can happen when you have some awareness around something, especially a past life hangover type of energy when that comes up, because it didn't happen in this life, so it's not quite as intense. You're a little bit more disconnected from it, if you will. You can kind of view it from the outside looking in, as opposed to, this is what I went through. It's a past version went through that. But this energy kind of hung over into this life. I think that's wildly cool to be able to nullify a fear of mine for over 40 years of my life from that awareness and moving that energy and balancing that within. True healing is shifting oneself. People can help guide you and get you there, but it's shifting yourself. So the last point that we wanted to bring up, and this isn't just one moment in a life or one experience that's happened, is being open to the possibilities and being open to change in our lives and working with energy and shifting beliefs within us and knowing that we have the power to create this change within, is how much we manage to completely change our lives.
Yeah. I mean, we went from dreading what the future held for us to doing a lot of healing work and deconditioning to now we're just excited to see what the future has in store for us because of all the changes we've made. I mean, looking back on our lives like 4 years ago, it is nothing like our life is now. And
Not
we've been able
even close.
Yeah, and we've been able to heal a lot of our nervous system, just responses.
I mean, fight or flight type of responses, and just consistently being in a sympathetic nervous response, always. Adrenal fatigue, now much more parasympathetic nervous response, much calmer, much more rooted in, well, for me personally, my body. I mean, you've always been pretty well in your own body, but for me, I'm much more rooted in my body, much calmer.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been in my body, but I definitely feel like I had that adrenal fatigue. I mean, especially from working in the restaurant business for so long and having that constant hit of adrenaline every single night. I used to work myself up every single day before work because I was dreading going. And then it was like once I got there, once the adrenaline finally kicked in, I was okay. And I was able to manage. I mean, it's like multitasking like crazy. But I mean, where we worked, there was no time for getting it wrong.
Nope. Getting it wrong was much worse than stressing yourself out at being perfect and nailing things and being able to manage and juggle all the multitasking.
And while I'm the first to admit that I put a lot of pressure on myself as well, but I definitely think that the pressure was
It was rooted in
necessary.
It was rooted in knowing what would happen if you made mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. So basically just having that adrenaline rush on a daily basis. Not that I feel like having an adrenaline rush is a bad thing necessarily, but when it comes with a ton of stress and constant being mean to myself, then I definitely don't think it was healthy.
No, absolutely not. And it wasn't just the adrenaline hit to get through the shift. It was the second one that would come at the end of the night to get everything cleaned up and get out of there. And then you'd be riding that into finally, oh my God, it's 11:30 or 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's finally our time.
Yeah.
We finally get to unwind. You know, if you work a 9 to 5 job and come home and go to bed at 11, there's a lot of time for dinner and unwinding and family time and hanging out and relaxing. I mean, that didn't start for us until, midnight or so.
Yeah. But that's not what I want to focus on here.
No.
I want to focus on the amount of change that we have been able to create in our lives. How we knew that our coming together was this magical thing, and that we knew that we had the ability to create magic in our lives. But by learning how to connect deeper with our intuition and our soul, we've been able to create, unfathomable change.
Absolutely. We've seen and marveled at so much Mother Nature these last few years.
And animal friends.
Yes, animal friends. Checked out so many communities through house and pet sitting and getting to know animal friends.
Soul Vibe has a very deep meaning. We've definitely gotten to experience the vibe of the soul of so many places, people, animals.
Homes. State parks, national parks.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's been a beautiful experience to experience the vibe and the soul of all these different places.
Yep.
It's been like a research project.
Oh yeah, totally. I like when we liken it to a research project, because that feels so accurate, especially how our minds like to work and like to research and compile data and organize it. You're really, really good at that. I'm good at compiling it, but you're good at actually organizing it and making it efficient and look good and stuff too, when we review it. And we've worked with clients over this time. We've built services up with Akashic readings for soul journeys, past life regressions. We even have an introduction to spiritual protection for intuitive accuracy course online now, where we teach you how to clear your energy, protect yourself, protect your aura at least, understand what's going on in the world and why you would even want to have an energy clearing practice and to have something that can kick in a parasympathetic calming response to help with emotional and mental overwhelm moments. So it's just been really cool to know where we came from, to know that dread, some of those things we spoke of, what we used to go through, to all of our healing moments and the deconditioning to being more empowered, and that we did that for ourselves. We had some help along the way and some good information and stuff too. Some
great mentors.
Yeah, but we ultimately, you shift your own self, and we shifted ourselves. Yeah, that's it. We made the choice to do the work.
Yep.
It's amazing when you put your will to something and your desire to create change in your life and take ownership and responsibility for your life, what can happen. Yeah.
And I really wanted to bring this up earlier when we were talking in the beginning, but Maddie's so humble about his work, but if you ever have the ability to work with him in any kind of energetic matter, it is just an incredible experience. He's just an amazing energy practitioner that can create so much change and just amazing things. Of course, I'm like tearing up thinking about it all. But I get to be married to you, so I'm excited about that. But if you ever get a chance, Maddie is just incredible at what he does, although he would never say that for himself. We're working on that. We're working on his ability to be able to claim that for himself, but it's really incredible.
I am pretty good at moving energy. I do know this
yay.
About myself. Thank you, honey, for those wonderful words. I know how you just can look into somebody and be with them and just know exactly what's going on through a quick conversation and have that ability to ask those questions. You've helped me shift so much in my life and see the things in my shadows, or see the things I don't want to work with, or see my responsibility in it when I maybe am trying to push the responsibility off on somebody else, or, play the victim, and how you can just pointedly ask the right things, and how you hold space for me for that. It's been huge for me. It's been a magical journey having you as my life partner and my healing coach along the way.
You're a beautiful person.
You're a beautiful person too.
I'm grateful to be with you.
Yeah, I'm so grateful too. Oh, we're getting a little sappy now,
yes,
y'all.
We are. Okay.
Something else we're grateful for is to be sharing in this podcast format. We have really, really been enjoying this. This will be show 12. It's been super awesome. You do things when you do them, and I just wish I'd started sooner. I wish I would have fully realized how much I was going to love this method of being able to share experiences and knowledge and stuff. So thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes, thank you all for listening.
If you feel like sharing any wild experiences that you've had that defy logic,
awesome.
I always, in the show notes, make sure that our email, vibin at soulvibeinsights.com, is there. So please feel free to send us an email. Tell us what has been going on in your life. We'd love to hear the crazy stories, and
we would love that.
We would super love that. So feel free to send us an email. Yes. As well, if you've been enjoying this, share with your friends. Tell people what we're up to, because we are having so much fun and want to connect with as many people as possible that are into the Akashic Records and personal development, intuitive development, and all things co-creating life with soul. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, and we want to normalize these crazy magical
Absolutely.
experiences in people's lives, because a lot of people don't have an outlet for sharing those experiences.
Normalize it, because it can be normal in your life, and we hope to inspire and entice you to look within and realize the magic around your own life. Yeah. It's amazing sometimes when you just put on a different pair of glasses and look through a different lens that there is magic there. It doesn't always take some crazy experience to consider magic happening.
Yeah, I mean, just watch a sunset.
Yeah.
Look at the stars at night. It feels magical to me.
Yep. All right, y'all.
Yeah, thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
We love you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, morning, or night.
Yeah, we love you.